Well, good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome. All right. You see. So Mandy got so stressed out by the rush and the rat race of the big city that one day she just jumped into her car, drove out of the city, out into the country. She went just winding down these country roads through the forests. And as she was driving, she saw a little shack. And on the porch of the shack was a gray, wrinkled, toothless man in a rocking chair, just looking off at the trees and the blue sky with this big, toothless grin on his face. Well, she pulled over. She walked up and said, "Excuse me, sir. What is the secret of your contentment?" He said, "Well, I live from the bounties of the land. Every morning I wake up, I drink 2 liters of Mountain Dew. I smoke 3 packs of cigarettes. I eat a bucket of fried chicken, drink a liter of whiskey, go to sleep. The next day I start again." She said, "Wow. And if I may ask, how old are you?" He said, "I'm 27. Welcome. Welcome to this place which we make holy by our presence. These doors are open to all. We welcome diverse ideas about the source of life, diverse needs, diverse abilities. Here you can bring your brokenness and bring your power. Bring your fears and your anxieties, loves and hopes, for here you need not hide, nor pretend, nor be anything other than who you are and who you are called to be. Come into this place where the ordinary is sanctified, where the human is celebrated, and where compassion is strength. Welcome to this place. Together, we make it a holy place. Please join me for the words of the chalice lighting, which are printed inside of your leaflet. May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, Spirit of freedom. Now please stand if you are able for hymn 361, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In.
Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your hearts to the sun. Open to the sun. Enter, rejoice, and don't be afraid of some change. Don't be some change. To rejoice, come in.
Our responsive reading for today is not in the hymnal. For our responsive reading for today, we are going to do a traditional Autonoshoni Thanksgiving, which is a series. It's a series of things that we have in common, things to be thankful for. And this is it is kind of like a responsive reading that is part of the Iroquois Midwinter Festival. The response, the traditional response, translates into English as "Now our minds are one." And so I invite you, after each of these things, I invite you to join me in saying that if you agree that you are thankful for it, and if not, you can skip one. I mean, we're Unitarian Universalists. Our minds don't have to be one about everything. This is this is entitled "Greetings to the Natural World." This is a Mohawk version of the Thanksgiving from 1993. Today we have gathered and we see that the cycles of life continue. We have been given the duty to live in balance and harmony with each other and with all living things. So now we bring our minds together as one as we give greetings and thanks to each other as people. Now our minds are one. We are all thankful to our mother, the earth, for she gives us all that we need for life. It gives us joy that she continues to care for us as she has from the beginning of time. Now our minds are one. We give thanks to all the waters of the world for quenching our thirst and providing us with strength. Water is life. We know its power in many forms: waterfalls and rain, mists and streams, rivers and oceans. Now our minds are one. We turn toward the vast fields of plant life, working many wonders. They sustain many life forms. We thank all the food plants we harvest from the garden and the medicine herbs of the world. Now our minds are one. We gather our minds together to send greetings and thanks to all of the animal life in the world. They have many things to teach us as people. Now our minds are one. Now we turn our thoughts to the trees. The earth has many families of trees who have their own instructions and their own uses. Now our minds are one. We are thankful to the powers that we know as the four winds. We hear their voices in the moving air as they refresh us and purify the airs that we breathe. Now our minds are one. We now send greetings and thanks to our eldest brother, the sun, the source of all of the fires of life. Now our minds are one. We put our minds together to give thanks to our oldest grandmother, the moon, who lights the nighttime sky. By her changing face, we measure time, and it is the moon who watches over the arrival of children here on earth. Now our minds are one. We give thanks to the stars who are spread across the sky like jewelry. We see them in the night, helping the moon to light the darkness and bring dew to the gardens and the growing things. Now our minds are one. We gather our minds to greet and give thanks to the enlightened teachers who have come to help throughout the ages. When we forget how to live in harmony, they remind us of the way we were instructed to live as people. Now our minds are one. Now, finally, we turn our thoughts to the Creator, the Great Spirit, and send greetings and thanks for all of the gifts of creation. Everything we need to live a good life is here on this Mother Earth. We give thanks to the Creator. Now our minds are one. Peter, would you like to lead us in honoring joys and sorrows?
First of all, John, I'd like to ask you for some clarification on that responsive reading. Was that one spelled with a W or a one or a? Or a zero? We have a custom of sharing personal highs or lows, and this has some practical function. It's been said several times by wiser people than me that particularly personal lows or difficulties somehow are minimized, or the crippling nature of them are minimized by sharing them with other people. And nobody really knows why that's true, but it does seem to be true. And maybe that's one of the reasons why we've continued this tradition of sharing our highs and lows. So I'm going to invite you to take a few moments to collect your ideas together and see if there's something you'd like to share with us. There's no requirement to do it. And if so, you'll then have a chance to speak it out loud. So if anyone has decided that there's a joy or a sorrow that they'd like to share with us, you're invited to come up. Please speak your joy or your sorrow into the microphone so that it can be heard clearly within this room, but also on the Zoom that we broadcast. You can light a candle and place it in the offertory or in the baptismal font. It depends on how you spell one.
I put it in there. Okay, so I'm going to light a candle for my dear friend, Marcia McWilson. She's a local blues singer, and she was with me in the Odyssey. And last Saturday night, as her son was coming out of church and almost home, he was shot and killed. Having some kind of prayer vigil over at True Bethel Baptist.
I have a concern. I have a close friend who whose sister teaches in Florida. She teaches at the New College of Florida, and her sister is most worried about her sibling because she is in charge of gender studies in that school, and Ron DeSantis would like to make that school Ron DeSantis University. And they're sending people into the school to rid out all of the people of liberal thought. And she was quoted in the Washington Post. Her sister was quoted in the Washington Post talking about her program, and it's a misunderstanding of Mr. DeSantis. And since it showed her picture, she's afraid that she will be targeted, beaten up or something. So that concern brings back for any of us who are teachers and anybody in the public eye that this is what you are confronted with. And it's just amazing that it's happening again and again. So for Amy Reed, this is why I would light that candle. And the other is actually a joy, and partly a joy and a sorrow. The joy is I watched, and I hope you did watch the tennis match for the women's final at the Australian contest, and it was a fantastic contest. And I would always go to a place where most of you are familiar with the Tatler, and I would meet my friend Joanne Collins, and we would talk about tennis. And unfortunately, Joanne has passed now at age 92, and I really miss her.
Last week when Susan was here, Susan Frawley was speaking, she mentioned, she did a little plug at the end for her son Max and his play that he's in. And it was in the Gusto Thursday night with a nice picture of Max. And he got a nice write-up. It says, and he played this person named Gary. He says, and as the gifted Gary, young Max Goldhirsch, most recently of Jewish Repertory Theater's The Chosen, continues to impress. He has good comic chops and holds his own with his talented co-stars. So he kept up with the adults in the play. So he got a really nice write-up for a kid. So I thought you'd like to know that.
And Desi on Zoom had a joy and sorrow.
Oh, good morning, everyone. So Christmas has been kind of hard for me because I've been missing the people who are gone. But yesterday, Hector and I went to the National Museum of American Indian down on the tip of Manhattan, southern Manhattan. And it was so, so beautiful. There was one section, well, we go every year, well, not about every 10 years actually, because we both have Native ancestry and we go to see the information about the nations that are part of our history. Anyway, it was just beautiful. It was a day of sharing children's games and the games that were played. So that was fun. And then they had a particular section about New York State, and they featured Niagara Falls and the Haudenosaunee. And it was really good. It made us miss all of you. So Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Anyone else have something you'd like to contribute to this? Then I think we'll move on to the next item on our schedule, which is the collection for the betterment of this church while Patty plays the offertory.
to me. Sing in my giving like mission of justice. Spirit, come to me.
It can be hard to be thankful in the middle of a Western New York winter. I think of winter as a time of isolation, solitary confinement, as if Mother Nature put all the kids in timeout to go sit in corners by ourselves. This winter has been a season of loneliness, some of us lonely in empty nests, some of us lonely in full chattering nests of children chirping demands. The voices of children can sound like bird song, but really only when it's other people's children. And it gets me to thinking, how did the indigenous peoples of Western New York handle these harsh winters? Well, for one thing, they did it by living in longhouses. A longhouse is an intergenerational family apartment building in the shape of a pine cone. 100 people could live in one, the descendants of a common grandmother or great-grandmother, with her female offspring and their husbands and children. Plus, it had room to store dried corn, squash, and beans so that with a scoop of snow, you could make enough corn chowder for all of the inhabitants. In what we would call the dead of winter, the longhouse was alive with energy. Kids running around, elders telling stories, parents getting a break when they needed it. The indigenous peoples of Western New York celebrate 2 major harvest festivals each year. One is in the autumn, the harvest of farming. The corn, squash, and beans, known together as the Three Sisters, arise to feed the tribe through the winter months, and everyone gathers to give thanks. Then a few months later comes the Midwinter Festival, which is a harvest of hunting. The Cayuga name for January is Gaya da Gawa, the great body, or the body great with young. A time when the game animals are storing fat for the winter months and growing thicker fur, which will be ideal for heavy shawls and blankets to warm people through the time of cold. This also marks the end of the deer mating season, when the bucks have made their contribution to the reproductive cycle. Young hunters are trained to avoid doe hunting in winter so that the next generation of deer can be carried into spring. The Midwinter Festival is not determined by a date on a calendar, but by the moon and stars. Sometime in what we would call late January or early February, a constellation of 7 stars is seen directly overhead. The Greeks called these the Pleiades. In Haudenosaunee belief, these stars are 7 brothers who ascended into the sky on an endless journey, a trail of dance and song. And each year they invite the people below to gather for a corresponding dance. The sighting of these stars above signals hunters that they have 5 days to get back to the village with meat for the big ceremony. The Midwinter Festival is an annual communal gathering, a tribal reunion. Relationships will be renewed and grudges will be forgiven. To use an old Iroquois phrase, hatchets will be buried. Home fires will be rekindled, songs will be sung and danced, dreams will be shared, babies will be named, games will be played. But before all of this can begin, the people gather to give thanks to the elements that support life. The Thanksgiving address, which we shared a version of as a responsive reading, is known as the words that come before all else. It is sometimes referred to as a prayer, but this can be misleading for those who think of prayer as a fixed sequence of words requesting divine assistance. A more precise English language equivalent would be a litany, a sacred list where each item receives a response from the listeners. Or if you've ever seen an award show, you've probably heard speeches where winners thank those who've supported them in their work, in some cases mentioning God, either first or last. The Thanksgiving address could be compared to an annual award ceremony, recognizing each member of the community of life for its continued participation. Together, they make up a support network. The first thing to give thanks for is the gathering of people. We are all alive and together, and that is a lot to be grateful for. Then the earth is thanked, and then the list proceeds outward horizontally, surveying the land, the waters, the plants, the trees, and animals. Then it lifts off vertically, thanking the winds, the clouds, the sun, the moon, and stars, and finally reaches the Creator. But it's not just the Creator that receives thanks. It is also the creation. Giving thanks to the earth is different from giving thanks to God for the earth. Giving thanks for the earth makes it sound like the earth is a gift to us, as opposed to something that chooses to share gifts with us. That sounds kind of strange when I say it. The earth choosing to share gifts with us. That's not what I think of when miners dynamite the mountains and frack the fields to tear metals and minerals out of the land. But that's us. That's our culture. That's our way of getting what we want from the earth. And it comes from a cultural belief that the land was made for us, that it can be property, that someone can own mineral rights, that one person can give another some money, and then everything on or under a piece of the earth belongs to them. And if the earth tries to withhold something, we take it by any means necessary. That's a sign that our culture is crazy. But in this prayer, in which people are thanking the earth because the earth chooses to give, that comes from a different people, a different life way, a reciprocal culture, where you accept what's freely given and you give something back. The earth gives us a lot. Minerals in the soil feed the plants who produce oxygen and feed the animals. Everything we see out there in nature comes from dirt. Scientifically speaking, all of the matter on Earth comes from the earth. None of it's made out of moonbeams. The dog and the tree that it's squatting under, the food in its belly, the person who scoops up the mess, yes, even that little plastic baggie they're using, that comes from the earth. Ironically, the earth would rather have dog droppings under the tree than a baggie in a landfill. But that's us. We're neurotic about that. In a funeral, when someone says dust to dust, they're right. We are made of dust, dirt, chemicals. We wear a suit of earth, and we're supposed to give it back. And over our dirt bag bodies, we wear other things that come from the earth. Cotton and wool. I mean, imagine this. A lamb transforms grass into wool. Don't ask me how. Even the polyester, which really does look like it's made out of moonbeams, it comes from something here. I think I heard somewhere that polyester is made from melted down dinosaurs. Thanking the earth gives it a choice. One of the themes of this Thanksgiving address is that each of the elements chooses to continue cooperating in this support network. The earth and plants, the sun and moon, the wind and stars, they all have responsibility and they all have choice. They are like a tribe, a community of mutual support. Each member has special gifts and abilities, and together they sustain life, including human life. They all agree year after year. It's democratic, but it's not political. It's indigenous democracy by consensus. Each member knows that their strengths are honored and their limits are accepted. They each make a vital and indispensable contribution, like a congregation. And like a Unitarian congregation, they each give thanks in their own way for being included in this community. The sun gives thanks by shining, the winds by dancing, the birds by singing, the cornstalks give thanks by rustling. And the human being, the youngest child in this community, has the widest range of methods for giving thanks: singing, dancing, chanting, speaking, laughing, weaving these complex braids of words to express our gratitude. The Thanksgiving address is a bit like a wampum belt, braiding these two strands like strings of shell beads. A purple strand of emotion. We are happy that the elements continue cooperating for the well-being of life. And a white strand of intellect. Our minds are one. We can all agree. Not just agree to say words in unison, but agree with our bodies and spirits that we collectively choose to be an integral part of this alliance. In our time of political discord, social injustice, economic competition, it can be so hard to believe that we could agree on anything. But these words that come before all else remind us of the things that we do have in common, even across these divides that we create for ourselves. In her book, Braiding Sweetgrass, indigenous author Robin Wall Kimmerer wrote, "You can't listen to the Thanksgiving address without feeling wealthy." And while expressing gratitude seems innocent enough, it is a revolutionary idea. In a consumer society, contentment is a radical proposition, she writes. Recognizing abundance rather than scarcity undermines an economy that thrives on creating unmet desires. The Thanksgiving address reminds you that you already have everything you need. In the English language, we have words for gratitude. Actually, in the English language, we use a German word, danke, thanks. It's like the clunkiest, ugliest word for thanks that there is. In Spanish, you express gratitude by saying gracias, which is like really pretty. Yeah, there's like pretty ways to say thank you. We chose the stunted, lumpy German one, but that's us. We have words for gratitude, but we don't have quite the right words for this combination of natural elements we can be thankful to and thankful for. Our English words, nature and environment, can be alienating, making us feel that humanity is separate from or in opposition to the rest of the world. When we think about the necessities of life, we take stock or we take inventory. These are words of commerce, business terms that imply ownership, commodities whose value comes from scarcity, objects that can be stored and hoarded and unjustly distributed. As if we could own a piece of the earth, as if we could even own our own bodies. You know, the human body is mostly water. We contain it, but we don't own it. It's always flowing out of us to become the life force of something else. We are like these walking water bags in search of meaning. Starting with gratitude can help us to find our center. Cut through the childish wishes and think about our core needs. What's really important? But gratitude can also remind us that we are not the center. The universe does not revolve around our desires. Unless anybody here is a toddler, in which case it kind of does. When we start to see ourselves, humanity, individually and collectively, as part of a circle of cooperation and generosity, we can find our place in that reciprocal circle of graciously sharing and gratefully receiving. Then we can begin to live in balance with the rest of the world. When we find that balance, then the earth and the plants and the animals can be thankful for us. Please stand if you are able for hymn 131.
Oh, make which, John? That's thank you and Cayuga. Love will free to give. If you can sing like the angels. You deep within. To give. John, or no, Bill, our microphone isn't working again. It's, yeah.
Well, I'm excited to announce that at 12:30, we will have an adult education session. We will be looking at, again, at the Haudenosaunee, the indigenous peoples of Western New York, systems of law and governance here in Western New York. Do we have any other announcements today? Betsy.
If enough people brought food, we were gonna have a luncheon afterwards. I'm sure whether you did or not, whether we'll just go down and have some food, but just be technically before you run off to the sunset.
All right.
Please.
Do we have any other announcements today? Together we have sanctified this space. If you have found strength and comfort here, share some out there. They need it. Remember that you are blessed and you are a blessing and you are not alone. Please join me for the words of extinguishing the chalice. They are printed inside of your leaflet. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
No grin, I obey. I obey. I obey. That was Song of the Deer Dancing in Chippewa.